My wife Tyra and I got married in 2018. We'd been together since 2015. She wasn't my girlfriend during the first year we were together, as I played the field. I had a rotation of 4 girls I was dating casually, Tyra being one of them. As time progressed, she eventually proved to be the one with staying power. We began to date exclusively, and eventually, I proposed to her. I'm going to skip over all the details of our marriage. That doesn't matter anymore. The virus had put a strain in our lives as we both were forced to work from home. Within just a couple of months, it became clear that being under each other 24/7, we both were exposed to aspects about ourselves that we hadn't taken into account prior. Things just continued to feel off. If she wasn't home working, she'd be out to the gym or with her girlfriends. She completely stopped making time to hang with me, and our sex life dwindled, to her giving me a lazy handjob once in the blue because she was too tired from working out so much. Her time away to the gym increased from 3 days a week for 2 hours to 5 days a week for 3 to 4 hours. I was happy she was spending this time in the gym, and she was admittedly getting more fit. She leaned out and slimmed down like crazy. I mean, the change was radical, and how she dedicated herself to getting in shape. That's not to say I'm not, but in the realm of physical fitness, I'd always been ahead of her, but she was easily matching or bettering my output. Under normal circumstances, this would be great, but if there were normal circumstances, I wouldn't be typing this. I became suspicious of her cheating on me 4 months ago. All of the telltale signs were there. As she became increasingly distant, the red flags grew bigger and brighter. Pretty soon, it was obvious someone else had interjected themselves into my marriage, but I had no proof, and her devices were on her at all times. So even if I wanted to install one of those monitoring apps, there would be no way to get it on her phone. So after months of being in the dark and living in paranoia, I couldn't act on it. Last week, I decided to tail her on the way to the gym. I'm not at all proud of it, but it was the only way I could think of getting some peace of mind. She went to the gym, and she was inside roughly about 2 hours. Yes, I sat and waited, but she was not alone. She came out of the gym with, of all people, my best friend, Chet. I've known Chet for 11 years. He was my best man. We had our first beers together. He's a guy I trusted with impunity. At this point, I was awash with confusion. I knew they went to the same gym, but I never had any reason to suspect that if she was stepping out of our marriage, it would be with him. Rather than go to her car and head home, she walked with Chet to his car, chatting away with him. When they reached his car, he proceeds to grab a handful of my Tyra's behind, pulled her close and tongued her down. By this point, I was seeing red. My blood was boiling, and I was fuming. I punched a nice dent into the roof of my car as I just sat there and watched as they were at it for at least 2 minutes, right before getting into his car and leaving the lot. For a split second, I thought to just go home, but there was no way I was going to be able to sit and wait, knowing what they were doing. I tailed my best friend's car for 20 minutes until they pulled into the driveway of his house. I parked about 3 houses down so as not to draw attention, and watched as they shuffled out of his car literally all over each other into his front door. For the next 20 minutes or so, I contemplated what I was going to do, and that's when my boiling anger turned to an unsettling calm. I started my car and pulled up to his driveway. After a deep breath, I got out of my car and went up to the front door. Wouldn't you know it, it wasn't locked. Yeah, I'm well aware that what I was doing was bordering on illegal, but I didn't care. I opened the door to hear loud music and the unmistakable sound of my dear Tyra moaning. I followed the sound to the back where his bedroom clearly was. I stood at the door and made peace with what was happening on the other side of the door, as well as made peace with what I was about to do. I made a quick check on the door, and it was not locked. I opened the door to the sight of Chet, with Tyra's legs pinned behind her head, going to pound town. Without even a second thought, I lunged forward into the room, and in 2 steps, delivered a swift teep kick right into his right rib cage. For those who don't know what teep is, it's basically a front kick. A jab with your foot rather than your fist. It made a satisfying crack as he went flying out of her and off of the bed. The moment she saw what was happening and noticed me, she shrieked in terror. Chet got off the floor, clutching at his side where I'd kicked him, only to get a glance at me a couple seconds before I came over the top with an overhand hook, hit him right on the button, and he crumbled like a steak cookie. Tyra at this point jumped in between me and Chet, begging me not to hurt him and just leave. He staggered back up to his feet, trying to say he was sorry. I lost it then and there. I shoved her out of the way, tackled him to the floor, and proceeded to beat the crap out of my former best friend. He didn't even try to fight back. He just attempted to cover up as I rained bombs on him. Tyra made 2 failed attempts to pull me off of him, but I wanted my 10 pounds of flesh. After laying a beating on him, I stood up and kicked him flush in the same rib I'd kicked him off the bed in. He let out a horrible scream. I'm almost certain that one broke a rib. He was laying on the floor, naked and grimacing in pain, and Tyra was tending to him and trying to calm him down. The sight of her trying to protect him sent me into a dark place. As she stood up and looked at me after trying to console him, I looked right in her face, telling her she disgusts me, and she'd better get used to being here because she had no home with me anymore. As I turned to leave, she was crying uncontrollably and begging me not to leave, that she could explain everything. She tried to grab my arm and I snatched it away, followed by shoving her to the floor. She was half naked, following me out of his house, begging and pleading me not to go, and that we could all talk about this. It was like I stepped into the Twilight Zone or something. As I got in my car and peel out, the weight of it all hit me. I didn't get a half-mile away before I had to pull over. I was sobbing uncontrollably over the loss of not just my marriage, but my friendship. I knew things were shaky with me and Tyra, but for her to do this to me with my friend of all people, that's a level of hurt I don't wish anyone to experience. Then it sunk in that I just beat a man in his own house. Now I was panicking whether or not they'd call the cops on me. I hit the gas and floored home. I didn't sleep a wink the whole night. I just sat in my living room waiting for sirens to near, but they never did. Around 6:30 a.m. that morning, Tyra returned. The moment she saw me, she just fell to her knees bawling. Between her apologizing, she explained everything. She told me that he wasn't to blame, that she came on to him. She was apparently pissed off at me for not making the effort to be there for her. How over the lockdown we grew apart, and she had no one to confide in because I was emotionally withdrawn. So she started doing so with Chet, and it grew into an emotional affair. She said she was the one who pushed it towards a physical affair because her emotional dissatisfaction with me grew into a sexual dissatisfaction with me. She said she was mortified by how I just snapped, and told me that I'd broken 2 of his ribs, and he was in a hospital and wasn't going to press charges. I let her talk without saying a word, and when I sensed she was done, I tore into her. I cursed her for being a coward for not having the heart to come to me and tell me she wasn't happy, and seducing my best friend in some sick way of getting back at me for problems I wasn't aware existed, and for stepping out of our marriage because she's a self-manipulative, trifling person. I verbally destroyed her. Then she had the audacity to look me in the eyes and asked if I was going to leave her. I was sitting there thinking in my head if she was really serious. I said to her, "You have been sleeping with my best friend for months now, denying me affection and intimacy in the process, and put me in a position that I left him a bloody mess with broken ribs in his own home, yet you expect me to try and work things out with you." Before she could say anything else, I told her she had just 1 hour to pack her things and leave. For the next half hour, she went through the emotions of begging me not to do this, demanding I listen to her, and refusing to leave. I told her I had nothing more to say to her, and that any future communication between us will be through a divorce attorney, and that we were done. Eventually, she realized the finality of my words and conceded. Within the hour, she packed up a bunch of her stuff, called her sister, Kate, and was gone. To ensure I controlled the narrative, or else she did so, I went on social media and made it known to everyone what both she and my best friend had done. I didn't mince words and didn't pull punches. I let it be known matter of fact that I caught both of them in the act and that I'd be filing for divorce in the coming days. As you'd expect, family and friends swarmed over the news. The reaction was about what you would expect, some condemning them for their actions, and some condemning me for making such a personal matter public. The surprising one was her father, who happens to be a pastor. He actually called me, asking if there was any way I'd consider reconciliation because Tyra was beside herself with grief and didn't want to lose me. He said under God, there's no act that can't be forgiven, to which I had to remind him that in the good book, which he usually touts the virtues of, that isn't one of the 10 commandments, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." That shut his entire campaign of reconciliation down almost immediately. The next communication I had with him was him apologizing for his daughter's actions, and I've pretty much not heard from him again since. This all went down exactly 1 week ago. I've met with the lawyer already and began the process of filing for an uncontested divorce. The state I live in is at fault, so I'll take full advantage of that. I've gone completely no contact with Tyra and her side of the family. She sends me dozens of texts and emails daily, begging for another chance and making all kinds of offer for reconciliation. She sent me a 6-page handwritten letter, professing her love for me and admitting her mistakes. Yes, I actually read it. I'm a sucker for handwritten letters, and she knows this. I read it to see if anything changed within me, and it didn't. The words I read felt empty and hollow. I crumbled it up and threw it in the trash where it belongs. I haven't heard a word from Chet, and if he's smart, he'll keep it that way. If I ever see his face again, I'll likely make another attempt to put my fist through it. So that's pretty much it. The wounds are still fresh, and I am still processing everything in my head. May my story serve as a cautionary tale to everyone out there. Follow your instincts. If you suspect something is off, don't chalk it up to chance. Seek answers and follow through. I don't advocate for physical violence, but don't hesitate to confront a cheater when you have caught them in the act. The betrayal and hurt I feel is worse than anything I've ever felt, but I'll endure this and come out of the other side stronger. I believed I would spend the rest of my life with her, start a family and grow old with her, but it's not to be. I'm young, entering my professional prime, and not a bad-looking guy, so I'll bounce back from this and find a woman worthy of my time and effort. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. Take care.